Section 1 of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution states, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." Amend. The Fight for America is a new Netflix docuseries that examines the 14th Amendment. I just watched it. Good gravy, I was taken to school. There have been a few times during the course of my channel that I have come across a piece of media, whether it's a movie, show, or documentary, that I've said should be mandatory viewing. Amend is one of those. If you live in the United States, you need to watch this. Will Smith narrates and kind of hosts this 6-part docuseries. He provides some insight and background, but also serves as the intro and outro person, as well as using dialogue to link segments together. The series, in context of the 14th Amendment, looks at the topics of slavery and what it means to be a citizen, the resistance to the ratification of 14, the civil rights movement, and the word wait, women's rights, the equal rights movement, equality of love, and the promise of immigration. Now, these are heavy topics that are rich with tension, but also information. So we have a lot of experts that weigh in on the topics I just listed. We hear from historians, legal experts, Supreme Court analysts, plaintiffs, and activists. We also hear the words from historical figures, and when there's audio or video, we hear some of the words in their own voice. But we also have actors, comedians, and other celebrities voice their words too. One thing I really loved in this documentary is when an expert was on the screen, their name and title were displayed. But when a celebrity was pictured, they were not identified by their name, but instead by the name of the person they were representing. Now, of course, some of the people are very recognizable, but not all of them. And I just appreciated that the creators of this docuseries chose not to highlight celebrity and instead give credit and attention to the true speakers of those words. Because of all the topics that are covered, this is certainly going to rub a lot of people wrong. It will probably tweak the long-held biases and beliefs of a lot of people. And this should be a challenging watch. That means it's working, that the topics are causing deeper introspection and thought. When the series starts out, it's addressing the impetus for 14 and the road to get there. To do that, they go back to examine slavery and even what constituted becoming or being a citizen. The first couple episodes, they're very hard to watch because they showed photos taken from a lot of the lynchings that took place in the US. Abhorrent doesn't even begin to describe the actions of the people that carried out the lynchings. And talk about the dark ages. This was truly one of the dark ages of the United States. The imagery is harrowing and it's very disturbing. And even to think back on it now, it just turns my stomach. It was just horrid to watch. When I went into this documentary, I was ignorant of what the 14th Amendment said. I had heard some of the verbiage and was, a little bit familiar with it, but I didn't have any knowledge of it in context, and I certainly could not tell you what the gist of it was. I loved learning through this show. It was very educational, and while it does tweak my pride a bit to admit, my ignorance of the amendment, I can also be appreciative that I now have a lot more understanding of one of the guiding principles of the country in which I live. There is a lot of historical data that is relayed to us. There are writings, poems, articles, speeches, and as we move into more of the modern age, we have radio and television recordings. There are also firsthand accounts from people that were instrumental in some of the changes that came as a result of the 14th Amendment being applied in more relevant terms. Now, some of the commentary in this is humorous. The presenters, they're not all stuffy. They have passion, emotion, and senses of humor and irony. Other parts of the commentary, though, could leave you in tears. This really was an eye-opening viewing. There's a point where the topic of wait comes into play, and I found it very compelling and infuriating. Whenever the courts or politicians or even religious leaders didn't want something to happen, or they felt that something was moving too quickly, they tell the people that are actually being affected by the problems that are being raised that they need to wait. Wait for what? For when? It's repeated multiple times that wait almost means never. It's incredible to see how long people are waiting for the promises that were made to them to come true. The visuals used in this are really well done. I mean, sometimes there are hand-drawn imagery to help illustrate the concepts. Other times it looks like a Ken Burns documentary with a montage of still images. They also use movies, TV shows, and news footage to drive the messages home. But no matter what the medium used to reinforce these messages, I mean, they are just wonderful to look at, and I found them really effective. So chances are that at some point during this, you are going to be challenged. I think that's the mark of a great story. If the way a narrative is presented can cause an emotional reaction, I mean, that's just awesome. And if it causes someone to truly confront what they believe and how they view things, that's even better. Each of the 6 episodes are just about an hour long, and I was never bored during this, but I did need to take a mental break about halfway through, and that was just so my brain could process everything I'd been hearing and seeing. But then I also dove right back in and I kept binging. This is full of what we'd probably consider hot button topics. I mean, items that make people uncomfortable to confront. Not all, and not to everybody, but certainly some. And that's why this documentary, I think, is so necessary and timely. It allows us to learn and confront things in the privacy of our homes, to internalize topics like immigration or same-sex marriage, citizenship, and even what equal protection under the law really means. The messages are powerful, and I really do hope the majority of people are going to take the time to watch and listen, especially if they live in the United States. I can see this becoming part of a curriculum in school. I mean, it's an interesting and engaging way to learn about civics in the United States. It's kind of like a modern-day Schoolhouse Rock without the animated bill, or songs, and it's longer. There's no sex, some brief nudity, some profanity, and some very, very graphic and horrible images of violence. I highly recommend watching Amend: The Fight for America. I mean, like, stop what you're doing and binge it right now. I'd love to know your thoughts on this docuseries once you've seen it. I mean, did you learn anything new? Did it challenge or enlighten you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.